This is a solution to exercise 5b. In this part of the exercise, we're going to set up the development tooling and also create our initial project outline. So the first thing we need to do is change to the directory where our project lives. And to find this out, if I just right click onto properties and then go into the resources, you'll see here it's the location of the project. So in my command window, I cd git and then to the directory where my exercise is located. And once I'm in that directory, I'm just going to run the command npm init. I'm going to bring this window up by double clicking there so you can actually have it full screen, and then hit enter. It's now going to ask me a series of questions that's going to initialize my project. Anything in brackets like here is a default value, and I can just hit enter to accept it. So it's telling me that I can't have capitals. The entry point, we're actually going to use server.js, not the default value. Now you notice that it changed the test command, but we can go and fix that. So if I just double click here to shrink this window back down, and now I want to synchronize my Eclipse view with what we've just done on the command line. So I just click here and I can do File and then refresh, or I can just hit F5. And then if I open up the package.json, you'll see that it actually entered all that information. So we just need to go in and fix up the test here. Node modules.bin. Now even on Windows, you notice we need to use the /, not the Windows convention of \. The next thing we're going to do is create a directory where our tests live. Now we're going to use a framework called Makka to do the tests, and it expects to find all the tests in a directory named test. So selecting the project, right click, new, folder, and we call the folder test and say finish. So to be able to run, we need to install Makka. So I'm going to come back down to my command line and I'm going to do npm install Makka. And then if I do --save-dev, it'll automatically write this as a development dependency into package.json. So I've noticed I didn't save that, so before I make this change, I'm going to save that, Control S or file save, and then I can come back in here and just run that command. Again, right click and hit F5, and you'll see that we've got makka now written into our developer dependencies. So if I want to run a test, very simply, I just say npm test. And I'll just bring that up. You'll see that we are passing all our tests because currently we have no tests defined. But that's our test framework now set up. The next thing we want to do is ensure that we're running a static analyzer against our code. And we're going to use the JS hint program for JavaScript. And there are two ways that I can run this. And I'm going to show you how to configure both ways. One is to run them as part of the test suite. And the second is to get Eclipse to automatically run the test as I edit the code. So we're going to do both ways. The first way will run through our test script. So what I want to do is do npm install makka-js hint. And again, we do the save dev to write it into our package.json. And then to help configure this, we need to put a file in our test directory. So we select the test directory in the navigator, right click and say new and then file. And the file is called jshint.test.js. And we say finish. And the content is simply require and then again Control S to save that, and that will run the tests. If I now just run npm test again, you see that we're now running the JS hint test as part of our tests. And you notice that we got quite a few errors returned. And this is because not all of the imported files pass the lint test. So what we want to do is we want to remove anything within node modules from our tests, because we don't write that code. That comes in as part of the npm install. So to do that, we create within the project a file called .jshint-ignore. So similar to gitignore, it just helps us not include files and directories. So new file, and the file name is .jshint-ignore. And in there, we put node modules. And we can also include our test directory if we don't want to have those. Control S to save that. So then if I go and run npm test again, this time everything passes. We have one test and it passes for our project. So that's all enabled through our test script. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to enable this same JS hint application within Eclipse. So to do that, we select the project name and say properties, then select JS hint from within this menu, and then we want to add, and we want to have all files matching .js in all folders. and we're going to enable all JavaScript within our project. So we just simply say add. And then what we want to do now is exclude the same folders that we did previously. So we say all files in folder, and it's node modules, including subfolders. And then similarly, we want to do the same, all files in folder test. Including subfolders, and click OK. So we should now look like this, and we say OK. So now any problems will appear here as we're typing our code. So we're now ready, we're all set up, ready to go. So the last thing we need to do is we need to just update and synchronize our repository. But before we do that, we also want to go and modify the git ignore, because now we want to ensure that we're not sending the node modules. So these are the files that we download when we do an npm install. So again, make sure we save all the files. And then what we're going to do, right click, team, commit. But this time we're going to open the Git staging view. And I'm just going to move it across here. So if I just double click this to open it so we can see it properly. This is a good way of actually managing the files. We can choose what we want to send to the repository. So in this case, I'm going to select all 4 files. I drag them into the stage changes, which means they're all going to be sent. And then I put a commit message. And I simply commit and push. And these files are now being sent to our DevOps services Git repository. There we go. And that concludes exercise 5B.